Ready?
All
3,
right.
2, 1. You're listening to The Pocket. Welcome, Ryan. Welcome, Ryan Nichols, to The Pocket.
Thank you, Craig. Steve.
Hey.
It's been a little bit.
It's been a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, Ryan Nichols, among other things, came up with us. We met at JMU and in the wonderful music program there, and Ryan quickly proved his mettle as not just an amazing sound man, but also just a good person to be on the road with in many ways, and has then gone on to do a lot of other things after the everything days of.
It's a good way to put it.
So many shows and live recordings and all the stuff you did sound wise and all of that with us. Then you went on to do the live recording for Dave Matthews, and then also front of house for a little band called Switchfoot that has done pretty well. So what would you add to that? And we'll go deeper on some of that stuff. But as far as like, what are you calling yourself these days? Are you still just a front of house guy, or like, because you've got some experience under your belt?
Yeah, no. So I guess my technical title with Switchfoot is production manager and front of house. And yeah, it's interesting because front of house is my passion and what I love to do. Nothing like mixing a live show from the smallest little coffee house to a big stadium. But I can also say that in order to make yourself relevant and occupy time, because otherwise I'd go crazy. I'm that kind of person. I needed other things to do, and so I took on the production management role. And I can easily say that that's not. Is that on me or is that no? That's not my favorite part of the job, but it's fun and exciting, and I'm getting ready to go on our first tour in a while, as everybody knows. Right. September, we're going out for 2 months, and it's putting together every part of the puzzle, like set design, the whole look of the show, the idea of the show, what our goal is to get across to the fans, how to do that, and then how to make those puzzle pieces fit with the budget, with the truck, with everything. And it's an all-encompassing process that it's a lot of people don't realize what goes into it. That's something that always has fascinated me, is how little people know about the world behind the scenes in music. It's everything from the recording process, like no one has it. And John Foreman always equates it to making sausage. Like sometimes you might not want to know what goes into the making of your favorite song.
Right.
I think that the making of a show is a little more exciting, but it's also can be challenging too.
So you're like currently then for this upcoming tour, you're dealing with like set designers, lighting, like all of that stuff. Are you wrangling all those people?
Yes, I do wrangle all those people. We aren't necessarily working with a bunch of set designers.
Okay.
We have in the past. But what's really funny is the set designers come in and give the band ideas, and then they run with it, because Switchfoot guys are much more hands-on and definitely want to have a lot of say in the idea of what's happening. And so what I've found is that we typically I'm working with set designers, but it's the lead singer, the bass player, and the drummer of the band.
Yeah, word.
Right. And they, and it's really fun and great. And it can also be challenging because they have big ideas that are super fun but also challenging for me to figure out, because, it's one thing to go to a show like, I don't know, some of the big, Pink, or some of the big production shows, even like Katy Perry or Tool. I was just at, went to one of the last shows I saw before COVID, and the production for those shows is amazing, but that's serious money. And if you want a good longevity and you don't want to have to play a gazillion shows and actually see your family, then you have to take in we can talk about that later too, but that's something I think is really important, is if a band wants to stay relevant, but not, and isn't bringing in gazillions of dollars, then you have to watch what you spend and make good decisions and be, on top of it. It's really important.
Yeah.
What? You're telling me you have to be responsible? What?
As a rock musician, what are we talking about right now? I don't know.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, and also too, to like, we touched on this, but like, a lot of people who are listening to this podcast currently are just old friends, our network. I mean, Steve and I, we the first one of these we did was just me and him. And, Ryan, what we talked about with me, Steve, and Nate getting back together was just like, oh my God, it's just so fun to hang out again and get that hang in. And so to have you on, it's just like, this is part of that process. And so, yeah, for the people who are listening, man, like Ryan went to college with us, right? You were living with Mark Reinhardt, who was our original keyboard player. So just like when we're going to talk to Randy Reed soon, like this everything journey started as a group of friends who connected at JMU, who found complementary skills. And, what sparked this comment on my part was you talking about staying relevant means staying in the game, which means pacing yourself so that you can you can keep going, because you're not relevant if you don't keep going and you don't stay consistent. And I think one of the things that I've really loved about working with you is like, man, you're like literally an Eagle Scout, right? Like full tilt, like you did all of the things that you did it. So you brought that to the band, and while we were like, let's say that many of us were more of high variance individuals than others, you brought a sense of consistency to help us like stay relevant. So it's a really interesting point that you're bringing that to the forefront, because I really totally believe that is lost on people, because people are like, oh, dude, you're stoked, man. Like just chilling as a rock star, right, man? Just do shows. It's just like,
It's so much more than that, right? Yeah. But I think it's important to think about how we started, man, and how fun that was. I looked back to see who you'd done these with, and there was the one with Joe, and like going on. Remember the very first time we went on the road with Egypt and went to Radford, and how crazy that was? And Joe and Andy and Glenn, those guys were amazing, but also taught us so much, man. And like, I think that's something to look at, is along with what you're saying, is not only do you have to like stay on top of it and keep going, but you also have to keep learning. Like this whole thing is, I mean, think about what gear was like when we were at JMU and what it's like now, right? Like analog, first of all, but it was, and now, and that whole switch to digital happened, and it was like, you either did it or you don't have a job, like, so figure it out. And I mean, there's a handful of guys that still use all analog, but it's, you take up half a truck with your audio, and that doesn't work for most bands, so what jobs do you get? I think that's another thing just to throw in there is you asked what I call myself and what my job is. And it's like, my job is whatever needs to get done. Like, as a production manager, as a front of house guy, I could just go and do that. But if we're on tour and I don't know, something happens, like the lighting guy gets sick and he can do the show, but he needs somebody to help him get there. Because, I can come out of the bus and do the hour, but I can't do all day. It's just not going to work. And that happens, like that's, it's a 24-hour-a-day job. But if you can't do all 24, then it's right there to be like, I got you, man. It might not be perfect, but I'll do the best I can, and we'll go. And I can't just be like, that's not my job. No, that's when you don't get asked back, so you got to be like, whatever you need. I remember way back when we were, I don't even know if we were playing the show. We were at a show to see Dave Matthews and the guys long time ago, and Pete was there, and I think we were just going because we were kind of dressed up. And I remember him walking by the merch truck, and Corin was in there, like messing around with merch, and Pete was like,
loading boxes.
You need a hand? And he's
Corin
like,
was loading
stuff
boxes.
needed to get done, and this
That's
is
right.
And we all know the importance of merch, man. It's like it was a semi truck full of merch for a show of 25,000 people, and if it wasn't going to get done, he was like, I'm going to find out why I'm doing this, and might not have to do it again, but I'm going to do it today so we can have a show. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, you know, one little anecdote, and then I know Steve, you have some questions, so I want to kickstart those. But we just did the Festi in Charlottesville, which is a whole other thing with, you know, Michael Allenby totally changing the game of how shows are being done. And Slim was our sound guy, and it's funny because he was Slim, and I was like, what? I was going to ask him, where did you get that nickname? But you look at him, you're like, I understand. And he was out in front of house with his iPad, right? And he's like, you know, doing like monitors and checking, and he's all like, you know, and then he's just like, he's all of a sudden he starts like looking at the iPad and he starts shaking, and he's just like, shit. Oh man, he's like, this thing's overheated, man. He's like, all right, hang on, you know, and he's like goes back and he's got his iPhone out and he's like, all right, and he's like totally doing the jam because it's like the same app, right? You know, and he's just scrolling through the scene. He's like, all right, you know, who needs what? And he's just all out in the heat with his iPhone and with his, you know, essentially a miniature festival setup.
Yeah,
working on his
all
iPhone.
Around, you know.
Yeah.
You can be in a stadium and walk up to the upper deck with the iPad. Now, I don't prefer to mix that way because I'm more a fader guy, but I can do it, and it allows you to, you know, you don't have to be like, I'll be back in a minute and run and have somebody do it, you know, like, so it's a whole different thing. Oh, wow, we're talking about, there you go.
Hey, represent original. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
So
dude, I wish I had been able to see some more of that footage. I wasn't able to catch the show on Saturday, but I tried to watch some. And did I see a picture of Nate Brown playing bass? Or was it somebody else? Okay. Because
that's Hammer. That's Hammer.
You were standing in front of the drum, so I couldn't see if Nate was there. I was like, the guy, I was trying to zoom in. I was like, hey, I wouldn't put it past him.
We didn't get that crazy yet, but it was so much fun to play music again and to like take these old songs all the way from the very beginning days and to like take them apart and put them back together again in 2021 and to play stuff that felt really, really good on stage and that people
really want to catch somebody.
Really appreciate. Yeah. There's
I know Will Foy was there, so he's probably got some stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple of tapes of it, and then there's also the video where I think the people that signed up for the live stream have access to it. But we're working on all that. Like this is a whole new world for us. But
join the club.
Yeah, you'll get the you'll get the access at some point. But it was, man, it just felt so good. Like just to like have a little festy moment for just a second, you know, like the playing music and putting on a good show. It just like, I mean, there's stuff will improve for next time, but yeah, just you know, you've been doing it for longer than us, man. It just feels really good to put on a good show and to have people react to that whole thing.
For sure, but I know also when I woke up last March and it all just wiped off my calendar, and it who knew if it was ever going to come back? It was an eye opener of like, wait a minute, I might never do that again. That's weird. Like, then there's no way we'll have to do this, right? Somehow we'll figure it out for sure. And been different for sure, but been fun.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. And like I said, our first live show is going to be on the 2nd of July in Nebraska. And I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also a little like, I don't know, man. So
we were totally like that. I mean, you know, it's been a little bit longer since we played, you know, for real, but like just that idea, it was even weird just being in a big crowd of people, you know, like, I've been like by myself for, you know, like, or with like one or two other people for like a year. It was wild, man. It was wild.
Yeah. That started for us when we like, I'll tell you a little bit more later on about what we've been doing, but like when we started working again together in the studio and there's 8 of us, you know, like, and it was like, whoa, this is weird. And then, like you said, that the band guys just went to see a benefit show with the Beach Boys at one of the places we did a live stream. Mm-hmm. And so we did a live stream in there with no people. And then now we're getting ready to do our second benefit there. And we're going to have 50 to 60 people, but people that have the place called and they were like, we can fit like 500 people in here. And it was like, no, we're good. We don't want that. We want to keep it special. It's a benefit. Like it's more about the stream anyway. They went and saw the Beach Boys and they had the 500 people in there and they were like, what is happening? Because it was like shock, you know, like why we're in this room with all these people in a row. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just like some of the other stuff that we're learning, like coming back from this whole different way of doing things, like Festi is a great example of that, where it's like, you know what, like maybe some of the stuff we were doing before isn't the best way to do it. And like
Right.
maybe our fans want a little bit more space, you know, maybe that's a better experience for them. The numbers still work for us. Like, cool.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be 500 people in front of the stage. What if it's 200, you know, like
Yeah.
great. Awesome.
Spread it out a little bit.
Yeah. And so like there were some
They
people
do that a lot in Europe. I don't know, you know, I mean, like that's another thing.
It's a great experience, you know,
they
like
kind of section things off, and you only
Yeah.
put so many. So it's not like, oh, okay, we'll cut the capacity in half, but everybody can go anywhere. So everyone just still ends up right in front of the stage, where it's
Right.
okay, you know, and it's obviously it's a monetary thing too, because you can pay more money to be up front and then a little less. So it helps everybody out, because you're like, I want to go see the show, but I don't want to pay $500. I can pay $100 and be back here.
Yeah.
And enjoy my space, and hear good and everything. I don't have to be slammed up front.
What if you get it both? This is what you know, and credit to Allenby. This is what he said. He was like, it's like being at the VIP section at your favorite show. And like I talked to some of the people after the show, and it was like I had my space. I could like hit a little thing, and like somebody would bring me a drink or some food. You know, it was like it was good. Like and people are honest, right? Like that's.
Can I have my button at front of the house too?
That's the show experience I'm looking for. So it was kind of cool. It was I hope to do more of that, because I think it felt really good, and it felt really good for
That's
our
awesome.
audience. Yeah. So yeah. All right. So let's rewind here. Let's go back to the beginning. Back in the earliest days, back when you were you already had this skill set. It's what like made you such a crucial member of our team, was that practical, what needs to get done, you know, that whole thing. And somehow as a result of that, and I think Pete Cordo might be responsible for part of this, but even before that, I think you had nicknames, right?
Oh man.
So Little Buddy.
Yeah.
Rodney Knuckles.
I don't remember where that one came from, but I remember it.
You know, I mean, obviously it's
Rodney Ruckles, the variation.
Right? Yeah, all the variations. And then there may be some others. So I don't know if there's any others that you know of or can think of.
Man, the biggest one was Little Buddy. And of course that came from being next to Pete all the time. He was kind of skipper and I was Little Buddy. And it's so funny, because it's interesting, because some people from the past that pop up every once in a while, I can think, you know, Shannon and whatnot, and she still calls me LB or Little Buddy, and it just makes like, what's she calling you? And it's like, Little Buddy. But so it keeps. I think part of that is just the idea. We had nicknames for everything. Remember, there was like, I mean, nicknames and catchphrases. I could throw a couple out. You know, like riding around like worms and dogs.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was probably one of the biggest ones, man. You know, but like Cohagen Stadium, for our wiffle ball stadium that we had at the house.
Yeah, Craig
talked about it at the Festi, dude.
Craig got on the mic and talked about Cohagen Stadium. Yeah,
but on the podcast too, it's a recurring theme. Yeah, the microculture we had going. Yeah, it was ride like worms and live like dogs.
Yeah. Because we were in sleeping bags all the time, or we were in our boxers sweating like mad.
Totally.
And okay, one of the ones about, you were talking about having to fix things and come up with ideas. Craig, do you remember the time we were cruising through North Carolina and we got like a hole in the tire of the truck, and you decided to see if you could fix it with bubble gum? And it lasted for like a mile until it literally blew up, and we weren't ever sure if it was because of the bubble gum or some other reason, but it was
we had a bike tire patch kit.
Yes, that's what it was.
We were going overnight from like somewhere deep south to somewhere like East Coast. Yeah. And Mike Matsko was, I believe he was driving. I think he was on this trip. We might have even been coming back from New Orleans somewhere.
Probably. I think it was, because I think it was during a spring break one.
Yeah, and that's right, because that's why Matsko was with us. And somebody, it must have been Reinhardt, probably had a bike tire patch kit. And we've got a back tire on our white box truck that's like leaking air, and it's low, and it's like, okay, well, you have a flat is what you got. And we pumped it up and put that bike tire patch kit on it, and it lasted like maybe an hour and a half. It lasted long enough to get us from where we were to like near some town where there was a tire place, and we had to wait an hour or something until like the sun came up and they opened.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it was like 6 a.m.
Yeah,
but that all was pre-cell phone, mind you. Like,
right. But that it's such a great little picture of like what life on the road is like, and kind of how we approached it, which is just like get her done, you know, like whatever we need to do, we're doing it because like this is our path. This is like what we're doing.
You can't just say, oh well, and hole up here and not do the show tonight. You got to go do it. Otherwise, you know.
Why the hell else are you here? Yeah, you don't get your $300.
300.
You don't eat. Let's put it that way. Let's go one step further.
For me, it wasn't even about that. You know, I always come back to the like, you know, why are you guys doing this? Like, what's your goal? And we were always like world domination. Like we were in it for that.
I do remember that. Yeah,
it wasn't the $300. It was like we were in it to win the damn thing. You know, so
yeah. Well, and I just think there's just still, you know, and you see it today where like you go and you look on the everything Facebook page, like just to see some of the people that supported us and were around, like still around is awesome. And like the whole Bayou thing that went down, like it just that whole just memories and stuff is cool, but it's also like we all experienced this thing together, and like it's just kind of special and fun. And I still get it today. Like when there's that core group of fans, if you will, like they're bigger than that. They're like a family almost. Every time you go to the town, you see them, or they travel to, and you know, like we do this benefit in San Diego every year, and they'll come out to it, and we've all been in contact through this whole thing. And I think it's important to realize that I think that's one of the biggest things a band can do. If I was to give anybody any advice, is to blur the line between you and your audience. And now you don't want to go too far because you definitely need to have some space, but it's awesome to like, you're not in a film, you're on stage live. So connect, you know?
Yeah. And it goes back to what we were talking about, which is the tribe, you know, like we had this little tribe where we were like, you know, going around, and then like wherever we landed, that tribe like expanded into the people that had already seen us, or the you know, the homies, and then like, you know, kind of out from there. And it was funny because like one of the things that we had, like we were just talking about, was a language. You know, we totally had like this coded language for all kinds of, like, you know, like a guitar cable was a snake finger, and like you could say that to any one of us and be like, hey, throw me a snake finger, and be like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. But the other thing we had, courtesy of you, Ryan, is we had Ryanisms, and one was, that's the price you get paid, which is
so close yet no.
That was the answer back. Yes, so close yet no. So that still goes on today. I have a lot of phrases. There's a whole. It's funny is because I don't. It's taken care of by crew guys of mine. They have a whole Instagram post.
Do you have your own channel? You have a channel of Ryanisms?
Maybe it's Twitter. It's Twitter account, yes, of Ryanisms. That's
really?
What do they call it? Nichols Pickles. See, because that's the other one is
Nichols Pickles.
Yeah, but now it's not just open. You have to be accepted to be able to get in there, because there's a couple.
Dude. Yeah,
but let's see. There was one very similar to that one that you said that we were just talking about yesterday during rehearsals. Was you have to live in the world you're in. And came about when everybody kept always talking about being jet lagged, and like, you know, I'm landing in England and they're like, but it's 9 o'clock at home. And it's like, you're not at home, you're here now. So you have to go ahead and be here, like be present where you are. Like, and for every little, and that could go for being present here with you guys, or also like something as simple as, who cares what time it is somewhere else? If you have to get up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., it doesn't matter what time it is back home. It's what time it is right now. If it's 2 a.m, you probably should go to bed and figure out how. Anyway, long story short, but it's a lot funnier is that you got to live in the world you're in. But yeah, so that was just an easy example. But yes, so that continues to this day. That
So
is what Ryan is.
So this like internal Buddha that you have, it comes from like there's this practical, like super practical nature that you are. You're like a super pragmatic person, right? And you're in this world of like infinite, like, you know, rock and roll and imagination and all that stuff. And somehow these like these things, these Ryanisms are they're like gold, dude.
Yeah, but they come out. I don't realize it. I don't know, and
Right.
that's why they started writing it down. It's like, and if you ask me an hour after, hey, what'd you say an hour ago? That was so cool. I'd be like, I don't.
Right. Right.
You want me to remember? Forget about it,
Dude. Ryan, so I was thinking about you the other night because we were like obviously we're thinking about having you on, but I played a friend's birthday party. You know, we surprised some people and they wanted me to come up and play, and so I was like, I brought my own little PA up, and I was totally thinking about you because I was like, all right, first step, what did Ryan do? He always ran power, right? And I always remember how meticulous you were with the setup, and it's interesting because it was such a blur, and you know, I was a blur. It's taken me years to kind of catch up with what I actually observed along the way, right? There was a part of me, the spirit part of me, that was like totally paying attention to everything. And then there's the other part of me that was like participating, which was like paying attention to like nothing. Yeah. And so I always remember you going into a situation and going, okay, well, let's start at the start. And I think that it's really important to communicate to people listening to like how amidst the chaos that was our band and amidst the budget constraints and like this, you know, barely hanging on at times, how meticulous you were when you were setting up the stage, when you were wiring the stage. There was always a process, and I was always amazed because I was just like, how does that guy even think like that? Because like, man, this shit's crazy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of. It's just, again, it's kind of like, that's definitely a part of my nature. My wife laughs about it all the time when she's like, I'm a tad OCD, not like in the extreme way, but it's in this, everything kind of has to be a certain way. I mean, the perfect classic example is, so we were laughing about power cords to a cell phone and how there must be a stash somewhere that's so big because so many people have lost cell phone charges, right? But I have 3, and I can tell you exactly where all 3 of them are right now. Like the pocket of the backpack where it is. And if it's not there, I kind of freak out, right? So it's got to be there.
Right. If it's not there, then like, why isn't it there? Yeah.
It's a little different, but I approach everything the same with, you know, if you set up a whole PA and you get to a point and you're like, oh, we need power, and you aren't close enough to power, and you have to go back and move everything. And the ultimate goal for me in that process of why I would think like that is the last thing I want to do is have to do something twice, you know? And so the constraint in where something sits is, of course, I want it to be in the spot that makes it sound the best for everybody. But then there's also the one thing you have to connect to make that happen is power. And if you can't, you might have to make concessions, you know? And so that's always the reasoning behind that, if you will. And then I don't know, my brain thinks like that. Call me crazy.
Are you responsible?
Yeah.
I'll say
I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout, remember?
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the real deal. That's how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, in the ideal world.
In the ideal world, you know, but there's always this pragmatic equation going on of like, okay, like what's the best way to do this? And I'm the same way. Like I call it OCD or whatever, but like with anything, like if I'm going to cook something, you know, like there's a way that like is the best way to do it. And I might not be right about that. Like, and I'm not going to be like fiercely, like, you know, obstinate about that usually.
Right.
But there is like, there's like with most things, there's like, well, if you do it that way, that's fine. But then you're going to have to do this, and it's not going to end up as easy or whatever that is. Right.
Yeah, but I can also say that it's really important to realize that not everybody like one of the greatest things about everything, and most bands I work with, but specifically about everything, was that we were all so different. Like, but we're super good friends and we all got along amazing, and we definitely had our moments, but we didn't like all the same stuff. We didn't do all the same stuff. Some guys were in fraternity, some guys weren't, some guys, you know, like some guys like hair bands, Nate Brown. Some some guys like, you know, I don't know. I think that's really important to realize that not everybody in the band needs to think like that. The guy that needs to do that thinks like that. Craig, I know, like, you were an incredible creative musician thinker that I can't think like that. So I don't understand how your mind works that way. And that to me was always something that I didn't ever try to go, I want to write a song and just have it. No, it's like, it would take me 10 years to write a song, you know, like, and it would probably be really terrible, but I can think how to build an entire festival like that. And you know, but we all don't need to know how to do everything. What we have to do is realize each other's strengths and advantages and use them to all of our advantage. And that's something that's really important, I think, too, for groups of people, any business, a band, which is a business, but all that. So anyway,
agreed.
Got on a tangent there.
It's
tangent central.
Yeah, and one of the fun things about this podcast is we get to kind of talk about stuff like that, where it's like kind of life stuff, you know, where it's like any group, like a band or a family unit or a group of people doing anything. Like, that's one of the keys is like, hey, we all have different strengths here. We all have different weaknesses. And like, you know, if you put me in a situation where like I'm faced against my weaknesses, that's not the spot I should be in, you know. Like, if we put Craig in charge of setting up the PA, like, you know, that would probably take 10 years. But as it was, you know, we had a very diverse group of people, and then the other key is just like, how do you work together? You know, how do you like acknowledge those different sort of wheelhouses and make them all fit together and you know, like get the ego out of the way and all that stuff.
Here's to flip the script on you, Steve. The script.
Hey, flip the script.
Flip the script. That's a new one right there, Ryan.
Another pickle.
By paying attention and growing up, like, I would posit that I've been around the playground long enough that if I had to figure out how to set up a PA, I would know the process to ask the questions, to do it, and focus enough to do it, because we've all done it at this stage. And if Ryan had to sit down and help somebody write a song, because he's been around great musicians and he's spent years in the headphones recording the Dave Matthews Band live, and he works with Switchfoot, he would know to sit down and go, okay, probably here's the anatomy of a great song. What do you got? Let's sort through this shit and like make sure that the final product is correct.
I think that's a good one. That is really good. And it's interesting because I think one of the first things I would do is if somebody was like, write a song, I wouldn't go, I can do that and try to do it all by myself. I would phone a friend, if you will, and be like, hey man, can you help me do this? And that's part of also growing up, is to look and go like, why start from ground zero when I have all these things going in my favor that I can bring in and have help? Like, I don't need to build it all by myself. I can
totally,
you know, again, part of growing up is the ability to ask for help. I think we all, as kids, try to do everything by ourselves. And I think that was another thing I learned a lot growing up with you guys was once we started doing what we did, we never had to do anything by ourselves ever again. And that's true for the rest of my life. I don't think I never was like, I'm alone. And it was like, no, you can always pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah. The power of friends and team and all that stuff. You've been, I mean, you know, we were a pretty interesting team. And then and you've been part of some really powerful teams. So here's a question for you. We'll kind of do a lightning round format. So I'll give you the scenario and you say what you learned and how that prepared you for the next level. All right, you ready?
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna try.
Let's see. Pre-everything. Mm-hmm. So you were doing like King's Dominion, right? And then also the Madisonians, maybe?
Well, yeah, that was all like, again, I guess what I would say is don't ever be afraid to like look at a situation. And what I would say is how I basically got into doing audio in the first place was I was a French horn player. at James Madison. Yes, I said French horn player.
That's how you got into doing live sound.
But I was not very good. Let's go back and say I was not very good, right?
Right.
And my first of all, how I even got to James. So I was already accepted JMU, and I played French horn, and I wanted to be in the music program, and you had to have a major. Well, I was like, I played French horn, and they're like, we have already all the French horn students we have. So I went and saw Dr. Crowder, who was our professor, and he said, I already got too many people. And then I played for him. And he's like, I really already have too many people. And I was like, no, but see, I don't want to do this for a living. I don't want to teach. I want to get into recording and music business. And he was like, oh, okay, I understand. I'll let you do it. And man, it was really hard because all the other brass professors who I had to play for, they did not understand that. And we're like, what is this guy doing?
Right.
So long story short, I show up one day at lesson and Dr. Crowder has a thing on the door. It says, are you interested in audio? Talk to me. And I was like, that's me. I'm interested in audio. What's going on? And he was the faculty advisor for the audio crew at JMU. And basically what they did was set up a little PA so a jazz band could play at a faculty party or whatever, or go record the symphony so they can play it on the student radio station and run sound for Madisonians, which was a singing and dance group that was backed up by a jazz band. And it was pretty involved. And he had 3 seniors working for him. And they all were going to graduate and he was going to have nobody. And he's like, I need somebody for next year. And I was like, I'll learn. So I went in and started learning from these guys. Didn't really know anything other than what a microphone was. And I'd worked at a music store. And I just started soaking up information. And we went on spring break tour around, it's not around it was a bus tour, but we were a cattle bus. And we drove up, we did some shows at some high schools and stuff. It was super fun. I went to New York, got to see a show with everybody and stuff, and made some really, really amazing friends that I'm still friends with to this day. Then that got me to King's Dominion. And that was a crazy thing where you do the same half-hour show 5 times a day on the weekends and 4 times a day during the week with 1 day off. But I then was also the guy that knew what I was doing. So I learned every show in the park. And when somebody was sick or couldn't do it, I would fill in on the other shows. I was even doing more of that. So I learned how to hear the same songs over and over and over again and not be bored, and made a lot of friends and had a blast one summer. And then during that time was when I met you guys and basically said, hey, I can run sound for you, even though I don't really know what I'm doing, and go to Lucky's down in Radford and Buddy's at Blacksburg. And remember I walk in and be like, George, was that what George?
George Wade?
His name. Yep, George Wade.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you know what you're doing? And I was like, yeah, man, I totally know what I'm doing. and it would kind of be set up where it was like vocals. I was like, yeah, I have my vocals in there and this and that. And I was like, okay, and I know what I'm doing. And it was like learning, jumping in with both feet, man. And so I think that is just the biggest thing is don't ever pass up opportunity. Don't ever think you can't, and just don't do it.
Yeah.
So that would be my pre-everything stuff, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. And I've been in some situations in the studio where it's like, do you know how to do this? And I'll be like, yeah, and then and that's your shot, and you take that shot. Yeah, totally. All right. So then, okay. So now the everything, and then, what happened next after that was Dave Matthews. Right. So what did you learn, in everything that prepared you for
well, we kind of already talked about the everything stuff. Was I learned the value of an amazing group of friends and what you can accomplish with that, and just incredible experience all in. And then but then also just I went from not knowing anything to being able to do a show at Red Rocks, and traveling, all that stuff. But then you escalate that to the Dave Matthews world, where it was again another situation where I wasn't mixing, so it wasn't my ideal favorite job, which is ideally at the end why I was like, I gotta go back to mixing more.
Right.
But Bagby was, it was funny. So when I first started, when it first came up that I called him and I was like, "You guys are going on tour? Is there a position open? I really need to do something to get back on the road." And he's like, "Yeah, man. Do you have a resume?" And this is actually just pre-laptop, because I got a laptop when I got the job. But so I had this little computer in my house. I like make this resume and I email it to him, which is like one of the first emails I ever sent. And I was like, next day I was like, did you guys get my resume? He's like, yeah, but we couldn't open it. But it doesn't matter. You got the job, because everybody knew who you were. And it was like, and it was like, but it was like, what am I doing? He's like, you're recording. You could come down and we got to build a whole mobile recording unit. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
No idea really what I was doing, what I was looking at. Again, utilized friends and people that knew and pieced it, John Alasia, those guys, and like, hey, what, and put it all together. And next thing you know, I'm at giant stadium in New York, packed with people recording Dave Matthews Band. And it's crazy. And what's even crazier is I did that for 4 years. Joe Lawler took over for me and done it ever since.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some incredible experiences.
Yeah.
Love that dude, by the way.
Totally.
Ryan, I distinctly remember in 1999, the third night of the Giant Stadium run, when you were recording, and you remember I came out with Deej. We took out, and for anybody listening, Dan Gettle is a legendary voiceover man in New York
HBO,
who likes to have a good time. Yeah. And he got a limo for us. We went out from Manhattan, and I think we sat on you guys had a couch.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there on this couch watching the Dave Matthews Band and you like chilling, and we would just you'd kind of talk with us a little bit. And I remember sitting on the couch like in the middle of the Giant Stadium, and I was like, this is pretty cool.
It was really fun. That was an amazing time. Those guys are amazing. I can't say enough about them. They're, and then Leroy. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Roy.
An amazing story. I mean, that organization, I think, has popped up probably in every one of our podcasts, just because they're this this Mount Everest that like we were next to the whole time, and I think
very first road trip we did with them was,
right?
I still have huge memories of that.
Yeah, the 6 weeks, from west of the Mississippi, and they were just blowing up, like everywhere they weren't on the radio quite yet or anything, but like everywhere we went, everybody knew what was going on that night. It was just,
it was insane.
The buzz of
I still play some of those venues,
right.
And it's so fun, I remember being here with Dave Matthews, or
yeah.
And the ones I don't play, I'll usually go see people when we're in that town. It's because a lot of them are still there. Some of them aren't, but who knows now? But
right, who knows?
Yeah,
now?
some really good fun times. And
one of the interesting things about that tour, Ryan, I remembered really specifically being hyper aware that what we were witnessing was the breaking of a superstar band. Right? Like this is what happens when things start to catch on fire socially, where these crowds would show up and things would just melt down, right? The people would just be freaking, and you're like, oh, this is what it looks like when somebody's about to like totally blow up. And it was a very specific feeling that I got. And we had some of that with Hooch. Like Hooch as a song was just like, what is happening right now? It's like whitewater paddling, right? And so it's just like, you're just kind of like, oh, I'm just trying not to flip over right now because it's just happening. Versus a lot of times in the first 5 years, you're like, everybody's got to keep rowing, and damn it, we ran the ground, pulled the boat over the thing, trying to get some white water here.
Do you remember the when we would during Hooch, when we would play those huge radio festivals, and it would be like 98 degrees, not temperature, but the band. And TLC and all these things. Yep. And we would roll in, and there would be a backline truck there. And the people would be like, what is the backline for? What are these? And we were the only band with like band gear. Right. Because everybody else was like 4 or 5 people, and they'd hit play, and it would be like a boy band or go.
Microphones? Oh, okay.
And how, because we never get a sound check. So it was just like, go. And people would be like, it doesn't sound that good. I was like, give me 30 seconds, man. Because I just, and they didn't really understand it. Like, I wasn't just hitting play. And it was, but I think it's one of the things for that was just like, we did it, and it was awesome, and we had so much fun and learned so much, but we never backed away from the challenge of that. Or like the time we did the show in Virginia and then flew to
Oklahoma.
And did the show where it was like, it was gigantic bands, and it was
it was like Candlebox and Third Eye Blind.
But it was like stage, and we got there, and the band before us was already playing on the other stage, and we like set up. And I remember walking out the front of the house, and this is something that I still can do to this day, which kind of freaks me out. But I basically was told the guy at front of house, like, just label everything and set gains as we line check on stage. And when I walk out, I can just like go, and within a certain, like short amount of time, be able to, and it was all analog at the time. So it's not like nowadays I plug in a file and everything's completely ready to go. But this was way before that. And it was just like, I don't remember how many people were there, but it was
30-some thousand.
Yeah. It was crazy. Yeah. That was one of I still like, those moments are just, you remember that forever. Like that,
totally.
That feeling of stepping up to the consoles, and the guys literally going, "Ladies and gentlemen, everything," and you're like, "Wow!" You guys were like, "Oh my god!" And everyone's like, "Wow!"
Well, it's kind of crazy, because that story is such an epic story from my memory of it, like just flying in a Learjet and all that stuff. But
Matt Pinfield, remember?
Yeah, Matt Pinfield, like all of it, the whole thing, and yet your perspective on it, which is like stepping up and like putting your fingers on the faders, and it's like it's go time. Like, does this sound great? Not yet. Like that's
did it blow up? Right. I don't know.
Right. Wow, dude.
Yeah, that's cool. Pretty crazy.
So then, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, one little observation is just like to put some perspective on things. Like, we were wide open. It was just like, if there's an opportunity, like, we rarely said no. And I think it's, for you to talk about when Hooch became a pop song and we were playing pop radio music festivals where it is TLC, it is 98 Degrees. We got to know Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block because he was on the same circuit as us, right? And these super pop bands. But people also have to realize that probably within the same year, we were somewhere in a field in Ohio at the most crunchiest Grateful Dead festival with Phil Lesh and Friends or Rat Dog or something like that, and playing for like super hippies where they're just totally tripping and they're like, please make it as spacey as possible, versus what we're talking about is the pop thing. It's like, hey, you got 20 minutes, probably best just to get to your hit song as fast as possible.
Oh yeah, like, can you play your hit song 5 times? Because that would be really great,
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no, and I think it's important that what you just said in there about not saying no to anything it's still that way to this day for me with Switchfoot, which I love them for, is the idea that they'll usually come to me and there's the idea, on the phone call with management, and they're like, Ryan, can we do this? And I always in my head, I'm going, what they're really saying is, when we do this, how are you going to make it happen? And it's always like, because if I say no, does it matter? Right. The idea being is like, there's fans that want to see us somewhere. Why say no? Like, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
I think that's just part of being in the showbiz industry, like it's something that I've done in every sort of role that I've done. Like when I was working with clients, like ad agencies and stuff, and they're looking for like, can this music work for this or whatever? It's always just yes. It's always just like, well, okay, like how do we figure this out? So that's that thing. We're getting to a little bit to the end here. I've got a question for you.
Shoot.
Well, we didn't finish though, because you went from DMB to Switchfoot. Yeah. And so obviously working with DMB, like you're talking about one of the best organizations, like not just the band, not just the songwriter and whatever, but the way that organization like worked and the way that it was like a family, and yet like there were good people in each of the positions doing like really good work. I mean, so then walk us through that, transition from, because you wanted to do front of house.
Yeah. Well, and so with DMB, I was able to do front of house every now and again, right? Like some Ben Queller would come up, be the opening act, and he wouldn't have an engineer. So they would have, I'd mix him. But it's
cool. I didn't know you get to do that. That's nice.
Just little short times, I could equate it to my version of Joe actually getting on stage and playing with the band, but it's, right. It's a little different. But
let Ryan mix.
You have to. Do you know how hard it is to sit behind somebody and watch them do what you're doing?
Oh, dude.
Not be able to do it. Right?
It's the exact same thing. Like anytime I go see a band and the guitar player, I'm like, man, give me that guitar.
Yeah, but see, going to see him once is one thing, but doing it every night over and over again, just being like, Bagby'd be like, I gotta run, do something. Is I get to mix for a second.
Yeah.
And I actually, but so how did it go from one to the other? Was like, so in that situation, I basically was like, I really want to get back into mixing a band and being a part, because so I think it's really important also to let people know that like there's not like some set way to mix a band, right? Like or a song or whatever. You kind of become, it's weird to say because I'm really not, but it's like you're a part of the process of making the show and the song sound a certain way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
You do it long enough and you kind of become part of the band, and in the sense that when you're working for the same band over and over. And that said, there's something really special about getting to that point, and I wasn't there at this time. Like, I missed that, and I got the opportunity to do some. We won't go into why or how, but it was during some time off, and I got asked to do some stuff, and I did a couple day stint with the Switchfoot guys, and they were an amazing band. And I was like, you guys are really good. And they were on the cusp of breaking, but they hadn't yet. And I saw something special. And they were like, if you ever leave Dave Matthews Band and want a gig, let us know. And I was like, all right, no plan to do it. Went and back on tour with Dave Matthews for the next summer. And in the middle of it, they ended up having to fire their audio guy they had at the time. And they called me. And so this was like in July. And between then and December, the shows they had on the books, I could do every single show on days off from Dave Matthews Band, flying a lot. And then they had about a week and a half at home, and then went on tour with them for the fall. And I only missed one show in December when I went back out with Dave to do a Christmas thing. And when I missed that show, I came back and they were like, if we had our say, you would never miss another show. And I was like, okay. And then by the next time Dave went out, I was like, guys, I'm going to stay. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to leave Dave Matthews, man, and come be your guy. And they were like, yes, please. And it was like kind of awesome. And the rest just kind of went from there, man. And it was, so again, I'm be that part of, which is, I don't think I can explain, but from that moment on, I've kind of been an integral part of their whole live show forever. Now, I don't do studio, and I'm really glad I don't. I've learned that over the last year. But it's 20 years now, it's crazy. But, and did I miss going out with Dave? Yeah. Do I miss that friendship with people? I still have friends with a lot of those guys, a lot like crew guys. There's 60 people on that crew. I mean, it's probably more now, who knows, but that then. And I'll go, if I go visit them on, it's funny because I don't usually go see the show because it's like, I love to see the show, but I don't, it's not what I'm there for. I'm there to see my friends that I haven't seen in a while. And
family, dude.
Yeah. Still talk to a lot of those guys, still work with some of them. It's yeah. And so and I think that's something important to think about. You go through these chapters in your life and you don't ever just, some maybe, but I've never just like left one and gone to another, like I still meet and see and hang out with and work with people from all of these eras to this day.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
I think it kind of speaks to the person that you are too, that like, that's just, it's the relationships and the bonds that you form with people. It's like, that's you don't take that lightly. So for sure.
Dude.
Yeah, man.
The Ryan Nichols, the organic growth. What else you got, Steve-O? I know we could talk some more.
All right. So here's the Oh, I've got two more questions. Okay, so
Ooh.
one question is, you've been witness to a lot of shows, right? You've seen a lot of different bands, a lot of different, and not just the band, but like you've been talking about like the production, the whole thing and how it connects with the audience and how it lands and all that stuff. So what works? What doesn't work? Like, because there's a lot of
Uh-oh, Steve, you're frozen, buddy. So yeah, Ryan, let's stay with
I
us,
think
buddy.
I know where it's going. Yeah.
Yes. So what? Give us the lowdown. What works and what doesn't, bro?
All right. So obviously you have to have a good band to start with and good music. And then production, it doesn't really matter the size, but it just has to, I feel that the production has to work with the music and you don't want it to overshadow it, right? Like, I think it's really, for me, and this isn't everybody, you don't want to go see like a band play and have crazy, I feel like the audience should walk away and go, that band was incredible. Not, wow, the lights were incredible and the show was incredible. But who cares about that stuff, right? Like, you're not going to remember that. It's the band. And if you think about it, it's that way for all the bands we've loved over the years, like even from Aquarium Rescue Unit, where there's no production, but some of the most amazing music you've ever heard, to,
right.
Yes, a band can have incredible production, but they still have to start with something really incredible first. A good set list, dynamics. I think that's really important. I've been to so many shows where the band comes out on stage and it's like this. And it's,
right.
Man, slow it down, bring it up, punch me in the face, but then let me recover and enjoy a moment of like, and then punch me in the face again. That'd be, and then the crowd connection. We talked about that earlier, but I think that's super important. Like, don't just sing to me like you're on a screen. You're here, and I'm here. So acknowledge that, be part of that. I think it's really important.
The basics. I was at a conference and Tom Windish was there from the Windish Agency. And it was like this immersive thing with like 180 people from different domains. And like, we were all hanging out and I was like part of like the music team. So it's like me and he's a mogul, so it's like me, the random element, and him, the mogul. And like, we were this kind of interesting little pocket, but they had him on stage and they were like, so tell, this audience of different, like people of different domains, like, how do you make it in the music business? And, he's like quiet and he's like, I don't know, like
try everything. Don't give up.
Well, what he said was, he's like, I don't know. He's like, make great music, play great shows, do it a lot. I was like, okay, there you go.
And also,
awesome.
I think it's important to, you're talking about the crew side of it, because a lot of people don't know about that or acknowledge it, is you can tell when a band has a good crew or relates to their crew because the crew is like happy, good, like it's,
right.
I think it's important. Like, you can also tell when the band's not treating their crew that way and everybody's pissed off and things are, and it's like, oh, this is bad, like, I don't know. So I think it's important.
The mojo underneath the scene that you witness, right? You can just feel it, right?
Oh yeah. And when it's bad, it's bad.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a leadership thing, right? I think it goes back to what we originally talked about of like being like, to stay relevant, you need to handle your shit, right? So like, don't spend all your money, stay healthy, stay consistent, and like show real leadership in your relationships. And I think that that's something that like, I think that because we were all relatively decent people in the end, like everything had that, just being cool to our people, but there's an actual like, and Dave Matthews Band, they did a great job of this, like where they built this thing, and it's like there's leadership that's infused not only from the management level, but also from the artist level, and I think that's a thing that sometimes artists can lose. And even I lost sight of, because you're just trying to get the brass ring and you're just like this animal where you're just like gobbling up all the attention and all the things that people are doing for you because you're just hyper focused on this target. But that's different than leadership around it, right? Yeah. And that honing in on the target's actually different than realizing that, well, I'm honed in on the target, but guess what? We're all going for this target, and we all need to be like in lockstep in that like harmonic scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to Randy Reed for because he was really the person at the very, very beginning. Like one of the first lessons that I learned from him was like, these relationships, it doesn't matter. If we never see this club owner again, or if we, these fans, the people that are helping make all of this happen, each of these people in this stratosphere, like each relationship matters. And at the end of the day, and I think this is also kind of from Randy, but like it matters to you, it matters internally how you treat people. And that's like I just remember clearly I'm not going to name names, but I remember leaving. A lot of those clubs we played had a restaurant attached and you'd load out through the kitchen. I remember loading out one night and one of us had like this big, huge, like family reunion jar size jar of peanut butter. And somebody was walking out with this jar of peanut butter, like, woo, look at this. And Randy was like, nope, and like, it matters, that stuff matters.
Ryan, you're going to appreciate this anecdote based on that stuff matters. So I'm 8 years sober, right? So part of what I do is I pay attention to like, hey, some messes back in the past. And if you have an opportunity to like clean them up, you do it. Not all of them have to do with being sober, or not sober, but just that principle. And down here on the Outer Banks, there's a dude that works with one of the outdoor venues here. And one of my friends who's a fellow yoga practitioner, she was like, oh, you got to meet, so-and-so. Like he used to be bartender in Fredericksburg at the Irish Brigade. And do you remember the Irish Brigade was when we were like all attitude about not ever having monitors. And like, we decided that Irish Brigade is where we're going to like throw down, and we like we put our foot through the monitors. Were you with us when we did that?
Yes.
Were you? Yeah. And so that was, and I remembered like the club owner, of course, called Randy and was like, those are never used monitors. These guys ruined them. They're never going to play this club again. And Randy was just like, what are you guys thinking? And it was like, yeah, but like 25 years later,
Okay. So I even have one better. I have one better. Oh. Actually, it's almost the exact same thing. There was another time where we guys got crazy about the monitors too. It was one of the shows down in Blacksburg. There was basically 2 audio guys down there. One of them ended up, I think he's the guy that bought the truck from us, because I think that came up too. But he had these little wedges that I think were this big. They had like 10s in them. They looked like actually like little subwoofers that you'd put in the back of a car, and they were wedges. And It was this fraternity show, but it didn't even have a stage. It was like I think either the wedges were the thing, or they had like tables. They were going to be like blocking you from the people, right? And you couldn't hear these things at all, because if you're in a kind of a house, everything's so loud, and they're like, these things were working, you guys were tripping, you end up smashing those. And I'm in town in Virginia doing a Switchfoot show, and that dude shows up, is a PA guy, and I was just like, hey man, and he's like, you're not going to destroy my monitors, are you? I was like, no man, we're all in here, so it's all good. It was like, and then he had to show me a picture. He's like, I had the truck for like a long time. I was like, no way. I was like, that's pretty cool. With the windows in the side and the vents in the top. Oh yeah. No,
I apologize 25 years later. I was like, man, I'm so sorry. Like we were just total turd buckets for that. And he's like, oh dude, no big deal. I totally get it, bro. Like that. But it's just like, I remembered that because that was a mistake, you might say.
Yeah. Man, we had them, but hey, we're young. What can you do?
Yeah. I
think it's important to always remember that. And this to me is something that, on a complete side note real quick, because I know we're getting out of time, but I think that's something a lot of people need to think about, is everybody right now, especially in a world where everything is on video and everything, it's like you make one little mistake and you're done. And it's like, what? I think we all can look back at our lives and go, I probably made like 20 things that would fit into that category. And thank God I don't have to worry about that. But should anybody have to worry about that even today? I think that just my quick soapbox there for social media and whatnot is like, chill out, man. Like, people make mistakes and you should have a chance to amend it and, move on. So,
we ain't got no monitors.
We ain't got no monitors. That's on tape somewhere, man. I know it.
Yeah, buddies, man. We So just for people that don't know what we're talking about, like, so on stage, the band, like the players have speakers in front of them so they can hear what's going on, because you can't tell at all from what's going on out in front of the stage. Like you just can't hear that clearly enough. And then you get to mix that too, like in ideal situations. So like if I want to hear more of my vocal and you know, like the things that I want to hear, so you can get that mix on stage. And the band being able to hear is really important for the
Really?
band being able to make music. Like it just so happens. And so yeah, like there have been these times in our lives, and still like to this day, like even back in E3 and in recent years, where like sometimes you just like, okay, well, you don't get to hear it this time, and you still, the show must go on.
Yeah, it's important. You got the ability to just roll, baby, roll.
Ryan, will you come back, bro? Can we have you back on?
I would love to come back, man. This has been really fun. Actually, I want to hang out with you guys more, man.
Right?
Actually, I want to come to Virginia and the Outer Banks. Come see Mayor Ben.
Yeah,
That's
Mayor Ben, right? Dude. So if I have a vision, I would love to be playing in front of, like, on a fat stage in like a fat outdoor venue with a really great crowd. And I want you to be front of house, and I want to have a great band on stage. And I'd love to have a guest spot available with being filled by Jimmy Herring.
Oh,
That would be a great day. I'm just going to
Yeah.
say it out.
out, right? That
Don't
guy,
know how it happened, but
Steve, he just replaced you as guitar player, man.
No, I'm still there. No, me and Jimmy are good. I love to play rhythm guitar. Love it.
Yeah, no,
So
it's so funny because I remember, sorry, really weird tangent about Jimmy Herring. So my wife was going to get me this gift, and it was somebody was making jewelry out of used guitar strings. It never ended up materializing because I don't know, it was whatever. And one of the artists was Jimmy Herring, and she's like, "So who would you want out of all these people?" And I was like, "Jimmy Herring." And she's like, "Who is that?" I was like, "The best guitar player." And she's like, "I've never even heard of him or heard you talk about him." And I was like, the best guitar player ever.
Jimmy Herring is the best guitar player and the sweetest dude that you might not have ever heard of.
One hilarious last story, and a fisherman.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember a car ride in Burlington, Vermont?
Dude, we already covered that.
Craig Honeycutt was in the trunk.
No, I was in the trunk.
You were in the trunk?
In the trunk, yeah. And Jimmy was
talking
like,
about fishing with Jimmy.
Y'all are crazy, man.
He's like, you said something for this. He's like, he's really in the trunk. Is he really in the trunk? Y'all are crazy. It was amazing.
I was really in the trunk.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was like podcast 1, I think. Like we gotta like start like categorizing our stories. And you know, one of the awesome.
I'm bringing validation to your stories, man.
Totally, right?
No,
right.
I didn't know
Confirmation.
you already talked about that. So yeah.
As Mark Silverstein would say, confirmation. But one of the nice things about this whole process of doing these podcasts has been like unearthing that stuff. Like some of this stuff, like before you said it, and in each of the podcasts, it's been like this. Like I didn't remember some of that stuff, and like fleshing out these stories again, and just like kind of reconnecting with like where we were and who we were then and now. It's awesome, man. So
dude,
I don't know.
You could just all you have to do is name a band that we played with, and there's think of how many stories like Gib Droll, and you're like, dude. Oh god, like throwing somebody through the guitar, the fake guitar, and making think it broke, and then
right.
The Authority. Oh my god, bring New York City, and it's all done, right? Like how many times do we go to New York City? And it's like, it's just a wealth. It's so crazy.
Yeah, we just played with Andrew Wynn from Agents, opened up the show, and it was great catching up with him again, and it was really great. He was sitting on side stage when we played, and so like every time I looked over at Craig, Andrew was right past him, and he was just like grooving. It felt so good because he's he's an amazing musician, and it was such a validation to like see him just like, you know, like doing all that, and I was like, okay, cool, all right, we're on the right track here.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, man, I'd love to come back and hang out with you guys. This has been a blast.
Word.
Awesome. That's probably the very first word in our language.
Yeah. Talk about
Word.
talk about like the roots of our tribe's language. Yeah. Wordito, all of that.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Well, hey Steve,
I
sometime I need to get the story behind the amazing wall behind you.
Yeah, it's a simple
You don't have
story.
to do it today. You can.
It's two sentences. In my life, I have realized that having visual creativity around me was like just a wonderful thing. So this is actually, I'm in my room because I'm not in the office because this thunderstorm here, which is why I got knocked off there for a second. Like we lost power. But
God, I do miss thunderstorms, by the way.
right?
You don't get them in California.
Yeah. But so the I couldn't be in there because there's a skylight that the noise of this downpour would have been crazy. But yeah, so this is my room. Lily painted this right here, all this stuff.
I figured she's a little a while ago, I'm guessing, because she's a bit older.
Yeah. But yeah, yep, good stuff.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, love it. Word.
Bring it. Okay, Steve,
you
you're
go.
going to take us out. Impress Ryan with our incredible outro music. You've been listening to The Pocket with guest star Ryan Nichols.
Thank you,
to
gentlemen.
Steve. I'm Craig. Be good to yourself.
Thanks, guys.